So today's topic is I now know the time and hour of my death. And that's heavy to hear someone say that, right? It's heavy to hear, it's like when you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you a diagnosis that says you have whatever disease and that they are calculating you have 3 to 6 months to live. They're calculating what's going to even be the cause of your death. They are literally taking a condition that you have and they're creating a timeline for your death. Do you know how powerful that can make someone feel? That can truly make someone feel powerful when you tell them, when you have the power and the ability to tell someone the time, the hour, the date of their death. That's a very powerful thing. So I want to kind of talk about whether or not you knowing the time of your death would make a difference. Because I'm telling you that I now know the time and the hour of my death. And so you see here is an hourglass, right? We've all seen an hourglass before, right? And so if and when a doctor or someone tells you, who is in the medical field, tells you you have 3 months or you have 6 months, then it's like the hourglass turning and you watching the sand. But what if a doctor didn't tell you that? What if no one told you that? What if you made up in your mind that you weren't going to even focus on life because you were focused on death? And you were focused on death, not even realizing that you were focused on death. I'm going somewhere here. Many of us arise each day and we do repetitive things. We're around the same people. We're having the same conversations. And we don't realize that tick, tock, tick, tock, time is moving. Time is moving and we are so laxed about the breath that we're taking in each moment. The ability to open my mouth and express myself. The ability to think. The ability to get up and move around. Okay? The ability to go outside and smell fresh air. Feel the wind. Feel the sun on my face. All of these things is life. You often hear people say that, oh, you're close to 50. You've almost lived half of your life. Well, I beg to differ because at 50, that's not half of my life. I don't know what half of my life is. You don't know what half of your life is because you don't know the time, you don't know the hour, you don't know the day. So what's happening is this. And when you look at your life this way, when you look at it and say, when this sand runs out, so does my time here in the world. My time can end when the sand runs out on this side up here and completely gets down here. That could be the end of it all. We don't know that though. We have no clue on when we are exiting. We just know that we are. When you hear that you don't know the time, you don't know the hour, you don't know the day, this should really cause you to stop and think. This should cause you to have reservations about doing certain things, being in certain company, behaving a certain way, holding grudges and unforgiveness in your heart. Because the sand actually, to me, on the surface looks like it's moving slow. But just like life, before you realize it, you at 50. And 50 is not middle age. 50 is 50. 50 is 50. That's it. That is the amount of times that you went around 365 days times 50. But it does not necessarily mean that you've lived half of your life, because we don't know the time or the hour that we're leaving here. We have no clue. And so when you look at it that way, different decisions should be made. Different company, you should keep different company because of it. You should know that even though you don't know the time, and even though you don't know the hour, you know that the sand is, hey, time is ticking. It's going. And so when you know that that sand is going to fill up on this side, if you knew that you had this amount of time, what would you do differently? How would you live differently? Who would you be around differently? Who would you give energy to differently? Who would you choose to forgive and release differently? Because, again, as you see, this sand ain't stopped. It hasn't slowed down, just like life won't slow down. It's going to keep moving. We're going to keep aging. It's going to continue. The sand is going to continue to fall into this side. And soon there will be no sand up here, and all of the sand will be down here. This is life. One day it's going to end. You would have done all of the things on this side where the sand is coming down. You would have lived life. You would have done certain things. You're supposed to fill this up with happiness and joy and peace and healing. I'm talking about this side. Now, because of life happening, this side is not going to be full of all the great, wonderful things I just mentioned. However, the sand is still going, so that means I still have time. And if I still have time, I have time to fill this up with as much as I can of the happiness, of the joy, of the love, of the healing, of the forgiveness. I have the time. Because you see, there's still a lot of sand on this side. But the sand is still coming down here. It's still getting there. And so I want us to understand how precious life is. The losses that I've had in my life has taught me just how precious moments are. We are literally living moment by moment. And so if you knew the time, if you knew the hour, would you be living your life differently? Would you be connected with different people? Would you live in a different area? Would you take different risks? Would you start to do the work necessary so that you can fill this side up with all the love and joy and happiness and peace and healing and abundance and everything that you desire? Because once you reach that point, and we all should be reaching a point of growth. We should all be reaching a point where we're discovering more and more and more about ourselves, to become more self-aware, to be more aware with what's happening around us, so that on this side, yeah, it's a little bit of despair, it's a little bit of pain, it's a little bit of grief, it's some things that you had to go through in your childhood that caused trauma and anxiety and stress, but you still got this amount of time left. You still got this amount of time. What are you going to do with this time? What are you going to do with this? Are you going to say, you know what? I'm going to take the opportunity. I'm going to take this opportunity to flourish in the time that I have, because I don't know what that looks like. None of us do. Although some people have certain conditions and doctors will try to tell them how long they have to live. This is not that situation. This is a day-to-day situation where all of us are out here walking and living life, and we don't know when the sand is going to run out. We don't know when all of this is gone that our life is gone. And that the stories that are comprised in this sand will be told about you. So, are you living up to your character? Is your integrity intact? Do you know who you are? Are you self-aware enough to own your shit? Are you self-aware enough to do the work that it takes to heal? Are you self-aware enough to know that I've attached to people, the unhealed version of me attached myself to people because of where I was in life? I am no longer that person. I have stepped into the healed version of myself. Even as I continue to heal, I've stepped into the healed version of myself. I owe it to myself. I owe it to the people that I'm supposed to be connected to change what's happening on this side. Because time is running out. Time is running out, and we don't have all of this time that we think we have. So again, I implore you to consider what I'm saying. 50 is not half of your life. 50 is part of your life. We don't know when it is that we're going to leave here. Statistically, many people are not living to 100 and beyond. So if you're in my age group, okay, and I don't mind sharing my age because I'm here and I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to be here. I'm 46 years old, okay? So I've already probably lived half of my life. I probably have. I don't know that though. That's the thing. You don't know, and when you don't know, you need to take this more seriously. This should be even more serious for you because of that. Because you don't know. Don't waste your time and put your energy into things that are not going to be fulfilling, that are not going to be positive, that are not going to take you into the direction that you're going in. Because if you do that, it will redirect your path. It will delay what is for you. And I've had plenty of delays. I've walked down the same path 17 times for certain things. I've had to learn the same thing over and over. Different people were sent to me for me to learn the lesson. Okay, you still didn't learn the lesson? Okay, here goes some more people. You still haven't learned the lesson? Okay, I'll send some more people. Oh, you still haven't learned the lesson? I went through certain lessons 17 times, 4 times, 3 times. But when I became aware that I had this amount of time left, I had this amount of time, and I had lived this amount of time, and encompassed in this side of life was a mixture of everything: joy, sadness, grief, loss, despair, depression, hopelessness, just so many different things, right? And then also encompassed in that was, again, joy, happiness, peace, love, healing, abundance. So if I make the choice, stay here with me, if I make the choice to look at this and say, well, since I don't really know what's going to happen, I'm just going to do what I want to do and it doesn't matter. But again, you don't realize that character and integrity is tied up in there. You don't realize that people are going to speak about you when you're gone and while you're here. And those things matter, whether or not you believe it or not. So my point is, because you don't know when, because you have no clue when you are going to leave here, it is imperative that you become self-aware enough to know that you should be using this time that you have to fill it with joy, love, and positivity, to fill it with healing, empowerment, abundance. You should be using this side to do all the things that makes your heart happy, because you've lived this part. And again, all of the things tied up on this side is so much filled on this side. When you know better, and you've heard this term, when you know better, you do better, supposedly, right? And I used to struggle a lot with depression, a lot. It was very, very heavy, but it was intermittent. It would come, it would go. It would come, it would go. And so encompassed on this side of the sand, for me, of the hourglass, is, I spent a lot of time being around people, doing things I didn't want to do, associating with people that I knew didn't like me, didn't care about me. I spent a lot of time not liking myself, not loving myself. I spent a lot of time in grief and sorrow. I spent a lot of time feeling sorry for myself. I spent a lot of time thinking that I needed to compare myself to other people to be the best version of myself. But then when I became aware, but then when I went to therapy, but then when I grew, but then when I acknowledged my gifts of intuition and instinct, is when I chose to say, the sand that I have left on this side of the hourglass will be lived out in truth. I will become the healed version of myself. I will not have imposter syndrome. I will not compare myself to anyone. I will not desire anyone else's life. I will not feel sorry for myself. I will not allow depression to take me out. I will not allow grief and loss and no's, the N-O of me coming to someone and presenting a business proposition. I will not let any of that take me out. But what I will do is I'll be self-aware enough to hold myself accountable. I'll be self-aware enough to maintain my character and integrity no matter what. No matter what somebody else may say, no matter what someone else may do, no matter what else someone else may feel about my ability to be self-aware. Because I now realize just how important this is. I am so aware that this is my life. And nobody can have this. Nobody can have this. So I have to take control over this, because this is my life. This is the life that I've lived. So no matter what age you are, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, when people say midlife, when people say half of my life, it's not true, because we don't know the time. We don't know the day. How can you say that when you don't know? But what you do know is you have an opportunity to fully live this part of your life. Because when the sand goes to the other side of this hourglass, that is it. That is your time. It has ended. It is over. It's final. There ain't no do-overs, at least in this life. You have an opportunity in another life, but in this particular life, that's it. You're going somewhere else. Your spirit is going somewhere else. You're on to the next assignment. So, again, realize the importance of your energy, who you're giving your energy to, who you're giving your time to, what you're allowing in your mind, what you're exposing yourself to generally. And, take time to grow in your self-awareness so that you can acknowledge who you were, but who you're becoming. That's okay, because I'm unfamiliar with the old me. So when people sometimes will say, well, Kia, you do this or you do that, I'm unaware of that person. I don't even Even though when you look at me, personally, my physical characteristics haven't changed much. But a lot of other things have changed about me. So I don't even recognize that version of myself. So when people speak to me about that version of me, I'm unfamiliar. I can't even really connect with you anymore because you met the unhealed version of me. I was familiar with the unhealed version of myself. So when you speak about that person, I don't even recognize that person anymore. I'm not familiar with that person anymore. There are things that will come up that initiate a trigger, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I think that's part of the old version of me. There are things that will happen that it's almost familiar to me because it was the old version. But if you start talking about old things I did, old things I said, that doesn't always resonate with me because I'm so far removed from that now. I've grown and I've elevated that I don't honestly recall her. I'm not completely familiar with her anymore. So when I say things like that to people, I think they think I'm joking or I'm being funny, but I'm being dead serious. I have no real recollection of a lot of the things that people will tell me about. Oh, I remember when you did this. I remember when you did that. Matter of fact, when you bring it up, it's sometimes triggering because I'm like, that's been so far removed from me that we don't even need to discuss it. Because I'm so focused on this. I'm so focused on what do I need to do in this time? I'm so focused on how do I get it right with myself in this time? And the focus is always me. It's never about anybody else. I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm not here to give subliminal messages. I'm only here to reveal what has come out of me through healing, through recovery, through doing the work. It has nothing to do with other people. I've had people say that to me. Is this about such and such? My videos, my discussions, I've been doing this for many years. If you've been following me, you know that. So I'm not directing my messages towards anybody because I'm sorry, nobody is that important to me. I'm focused on me doing the work, me showcasing the work so that it may benefit or help somebody else. Outside of that, it is not my concern. So I want to encourage you to understand that you have an opportunity today to focus on this part of the hourglass because you've done this, you've lived this. And the one thing about time that people play with is they think they can get it back. They think they can erase stuff. No, that part is over. And you see how the sand is over there? Even if I turned it over, the same amount of sand still won't go directly back on that side. It would take some time. But that's not how life works. You've already lived this side. And you see how that sand is pouring? Can y'all see that? You see how it's moving? You might not be able to see it, but it's moving. Just like time. Just like age. That's how life is moving. It is moving. And it doesn't move backwards. It moves forward. So when this is gone, life is gone. So what are you going to do to change the trajectory of your life so that the focus is healing, becoming more self-aware, allowing yourself to forgive? I didn't say forget. To forgive and move forward. Don't focus on negative energy. Don't focus on who is doing this and who is doing that. So many people, and when I say things, trust me, y'all, I talk about things that I've been. I talk about the person that I used to be. So I'm not here to judge anybody. I've done these things. I've been these people. The people that I'm talking about is the version of myself that I no longer am familiar with that I just mentioned. But my point is, When you recognize that, you have to move into action. Well, you should move into action. We have a responsibility to ourselves. We owe that to ourselves. What is your character, your integrity? What is all of that saying about you? So that you can say better things about yourself. One of the reasons why people have so much negative self-talk is for various reasons. But one of the reasons is because you know that what you're saying is true about you. But you have the ability to change it. You don't have to stay in that space. You don't have to be the person that you're negatively speaking about. Stop posting negative stuff. Stop talking negative words. Stop dealing with negative people, because it's going to infect you. If you go into space and there's bees, they're going to sting you. Go into space where there's a bunch of bees, you're going to get stung. Go outside where there's mosquitoes, they're going to bite you. Go where it's a snake, they're going to bite you. So, trust and believe. Go around flowers. Go sit in some flowers and see how you feel after sitting in flowers. Go plant some flowers and see how you feel. Go outside and let the sun rest on your face and see how you feel. You have the ability to change that so that when you do exit, when the sand does run out, you've done all that you could do to live the life in the version of yourself that is supposed to be here, in the life that you're supposed to live. Take control of that. Stop allowing outside things to interfere with the choices that you're making about your life. We talking about your life here. When this sand runs out, this is how serious it is. When the sand runs out, that's it. Life is over. So what are you going to do differently? So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to, as I stated earlier, for those that are coming in, I'm recording on various different channels, and so you'll see me looking back and forth between different cameras. I want to share a piece with you all. This piece is coming from my book, Hillionaire. Hillionaire is a book that I was the visionary author on, and I invited 2 co-authors to share their work in this book. And so I'm going to share one of the poems from this book. And this poem is called Deep Below. Deep in the crevices of the ocean below, where I sank slow, I jumped in. Didn't want any swimming gear, I usually felt fear, the plan was to drown. But what better way to go than to see all the different things that resided in the ocean? The way I pictured it would go, down in slow motion. Played it in my head many times, didn't really matter about my inability to swim. I grew tired of no significant wins. Patience was no longer a virtue. Which subscription did I need to renew? I made a decision and it was final. And once that happens, you can't change the channel. We interrupt this program to make an announcement. If you are having continuous negative talk, it's time to stop. My mind used to have so much negative chatter, oftentimes as I whipped up the batter, confused about seeing battered faces, angered about the deaths of my sisters and brothers, heavy remorse for my past faults. The mind weighs heavy sometimes, and it is at such a high cost. There were moments when I needed restoration, didn't seek directions. It was too dark anyway, just trying to find my way. Guided by spirits and ancestors I've never even met. And let me be direct, I'm not here for any of this. Not for this piece of the American pie. No more lies, you've stolen my sight. All I did was fight, distorted and ambiguous facts, and you say it with such ease, so relaxed. I'm contemplating whether to come back up. What I see down here is beauty. No more ugly faces, took the crayon and started tracing. No matter what color I used, it turned out red. And by the end of this line, you are well fed. So that piece, that's a very heavy piece. That's a heavy piece. It has so many different components to it. Now, I'm the type of poet that sometimes I'll share the meaning, my meaning, and then sometimes I want the listeners to interpret. So you can interpret that piece. You might have to go back and watch the replay. You might have to listen to the podcast a few times for those that are listening on the podcast. So you might have to just figure out which way you need to dissect that. But it's one of those good pieces that you definitely want to try to dissect. So I want to thank you all for being here. If you want to support, get you a copy of this book or any of my books, feel free to go out to the website. It's www.keyscoaching.com, KEYAS Make sure you follow me out on Instagram at Kia McClain the Poet, all one word, KEYAMCCLAIN the Poet. And then be sure to go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that is Kia McClain. So, as always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your attention. I hope that this message helped someone today. What if you knew the time? What if you knew the hour? What are you going to do differently? You see how the time is still moving? It's still moving. Make it matter. Okay? Make it matter. Love you all.